Okay, I think we're going to get started. We're running a little bit late, and if you've seen the program, we have a very packed agenda tonight. And although we've got lots to discuss, I don't want to keep you all evening. I first want to thank everybody for coming out this evening. My name is Jess Spear. I'm the Seattle organizer for Socialist Alternative here in Seattle, and I'm joined here on stage by Ty Moore, who is a member of Socialist Alternative, a member of our editorial board for the Socialist Alternative newspaper, and he's the national organizer for Movement for Bernie. Socialist Alternative is a nationwide organization of economic and social justice activists. We launched Movement for Bernie this past fall to build support for Bernie Sanders' campaign and to build support for a political revolution against the billionaire class. I want to warmly welcome everyone to this discussion that's entitled Beyond Bernie. Tonight's meeting is part of a series of forums that are hosted by Socialist Alternative and Movement for Bernie all across the country, from Spokane, Washington to New York City and in between, Chicago, Minneapolis, Arkansas, Houston, Texas, and many, many more cities. Hundreds of people are coming together to discuss and to debate, what do we do next? How do we continue building the political revolution? We all heard the news on Tuesday, I think to the disappointment to a lot of people in this room and to millions of people across the country, that Bernie Sanders has endorsed Hillary Clinton. You know, we now have a situation where we have the most successful anti-establishment candidate in recent history endorsing the most establishment candidate possible. And why? Bernie Sanders says this is necessary to stop Donald Trump. I want to stop Donald Trump. I don't know about you. I'm sure you do too. But I don't trust Hillary Clinton and the Democratic Party leadership. I don't trust them to stop him. The Democratic Party has fertilized the soil out of which has sprouted Trump's right-wing populist movement. All of us in Socialist Alternative were not that surprised that Bernie Sanders ended up endorsing Hillary Clinton. And it's not just because we had a crystal ball and we were gazing into it. He said this months ago. He said that he would endorse whoever the Democratic nominee was. But I think people are rightfully feeling upset and are rightfully refusing to follow Bernie Sanders into Hillary's campaign. I mean, if you look at what all his campaign has accomplished, all that was built, he had 200 million plus donated, small donations from people all across the country, refusing money from big business. 13 million people voted for a self-identified socialist. He won 46% of the delegates. And all of that was achieved by giving basically the same stump speech in state after state, in city after city, a speech that boldly and simply put forward a very bold program, a pro-worker, pro-woman, pro-environment program. And he appealed to us, he appealed to everybody across the country that if we stand together in millions, we can take on the billionaire class and we can win this program. I think his campaign shows there can be no doubt that there is enormous potential to build a new party, a party for the 99%. Now tonight we want to discuss what is the best way to stop Trump. How can we most effectively win fundamental change? Because we face enormous challenges. I mean, you have climate change, massive inequality, growing poverty and deprivation, precarious jobs, a bleak future for our youth, and systemic violent racism. All of us by now have seen that horrific videos showing the murders of Alton Sterling and Philando Castile. And we say, without hesitation, that Black Lives Matter. hearts go out to the families of the Dallas Police Department. We do not condone the violence that were perpetrated on those cops. We are at a crossroads, though, of the development of a new Black freedom movement, a new mass-based, nonviolent protest against systemic racism. Because the police violence against Black people must stop. And I think the recent upsurge across the country in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, Atlanta, Minneapolis, Memphis, and here in Seattle, it shows that there is increasing frustration, but also a determination to fight back and stop these racist killings. Our discussion tonight is not just about how we can build the political revolution. We need to change the political system. But I believe much more fundamental change is needed. To me, a political revolution is the beginning of the structural changes necessary. And I think we need to have in this country a discussion on how we fundamentally change this system of capitalism that oppresses Black and brown people, women, LGBTQ people, and all those who are deemed to have no value in this system. I am a proud socialist, and tonight you're going to hear from other members of Socialist Alternative, including, of course, our City Council member, Shama Sawant. Now, for the format of the evening, I hope that everybody has gotten a copy of the program, and if you look at it, you can see we're going to hear from a few speakers at the beginning. We'll have some time for a discussion in the middle. We want to hear from everybody in the room. What do you think about what is the way forward? And then we're going to finish with some concluding remarks. To kick us off, I want to introduce us to Jill Stein, because we've got a video from her. For those of you that are unfamiliar with Jill Stein, she is a two-time presidential candidate for the Green Party. She won nearly 500,000 votes for president in 2012. And this year, she's gotten more media coverage, and she now stands at roughly 7% in the national polls. Over the past few months, Jill and the Green Party have reached out to Bernie. They've invited him to join their ticket, to have a conversation about what that would look like, and to continue building the political revolution and continue building on the momentum from his campaign. And since Tuesday, when he decided to not do that, she's reached out to Bernie Sanders supporters. And we've already seen a massive increase in donations to Jill Stein's campaign and people joining. We in Socialist Alternative support Jill Stein because I think after Bernie Sanders, a vote for Jill Stein is our chance to register that we want a new party and we want to continue building the political revolution. Who hardly needs an introduction in this town. Shama Sawant was the first socialist to be elected in 100 years in Seattle and was re-elected last year. And I think most of you know that since her first day in office, she has worked with Socialist Alternative and supporters across the city and across the country to build grassroots movements, winning a $15 minimum wage, millions in funding for social services, establishing Indigenous Peoples Day, defeating rent hikes for low-income tenants, and most recently passing an anti-slumlord ordinance. And we are not done yet. So please join me in warmly welcoming Councilmember Shama Sawant.
Thank you, Jess, Ty, sisters and brothers, thank you for being here. It is no exaggeration to say that we are at one of the most dramatic turning points in the history of global capitalism. Everywhere, the old social and political order is fragmenting, and a new generation is rising up to demand a different world. And here in the United States, in the belly of the beast, the two-party system is facing an almost unprecedented crisis of legitimacy. Because think about it, for over 150 years, the American ruling class has boasted the most stable capitalist political system. They used to call it the greatest democracy in the world. And historically, the Democrats and Republicans were two of the most powerful and reliable instruments of the capitalist class, deeply integrated into the imperial state machinery that has dominated and exploited the entire world for generations. But after presiding over 3 decades of rising inequality and social decay in the face of the deepest crisis of world capitalism since the 1930s, my sisters and brothers, all of that is unraveling. On the one hand, the degeneration of the old Republican big business leadership has reached such a level of corruption that even a right populist blowhard like Donald Trump can swoop in and with one blow knock their crumbling edifice down. And on the other hand, while Clinton narrowly prevailed over Sanders in the primary, this was only accomplished at the expense of exposing the deeply undemocratic machinery of the Democratic Party primaries. It was only accomplished at the expense of exposing the naked bias of corporate media and at the expense of further exposing Wall Street's stranglehold over American politics. Hillary Clinton may have survived the primary battle, but the neoliberal clique of the New Democrats that have dominated that party since Bill Clinton's 1992 victory are starting to lose the war. Hillary has emerged as the least trusted, least popular major party candidate in modern history, with only Trump trumping her in her historic unfavorability ratings. Bernie's political revolution has aroused millions to the potential for a completely different kind of politics. Millions now see that it is possible, without taking a dime of corporate cash, for a truly people-powered political movement to challenge the corporate establishment for power. The idea that there is no alternative to capitalism, and by the way, do you know who coined that phrase? Margaret Thatcher. The idea that there is no alternative to capitalism, that this system is invincible, that idea has gone. And now the specter of socialism has returned with a new generation discussing a socialist-inspired vision for transforming society. The idea of building a broad new political party to unite the 99% against the corporate duopoly is also rapidly gaining popularity. Historians may look back at the Sanders campaign and at 2016, the year in general, as a turning point in US politics, as the beginning of the end of the US two-party system. And we are all my sisters and brothers, are not passive bystanders in this historic moment. We are active participants of this movement, but, sisters and brothers, nothing is automatic. Our movement is now at a very definite crossroads. A debate has been raging among Bernie's Sandernistas over whether to follow Bernie into the Democratic Party to attempt a transformation from within, or to back Green Party candidate Jill Stein and continue the political revolution by building an independent mass movement for a political alternative. We in Socialist Alternative supported Bernie's campaign from the beginning, but we made no secret that we had fundamental disagreements with Sanders, especially on his decision, as Jill Stein has so eloquently put it, to attempt a political revolution from within a counter-revolutionary party. And as everyone knows, Sanders has just endorsed Hillary Clinton on Tuesday at her rally in New Hampshire. Emotions are running high, and we need to have respectful discussions in the coming days. We need to have a patient, understanding approach with people who have strong personal attachments to Sanders, and also with those who say they will be voting for Clinton to stop Trump. In some cases, we will have to respectfully agree to disagree and continue the discussion later. But we also need to call things by their real names and not gloss over what has happened. We should be clear. What Sanders has done by endorsing Clinton is not just a tactic or not merely a mistake. Whatever his intentions, by endorsing a candidate of Wall Street, by backing a party controlled by big business, Sanders has abandoned our revolution. He has endorsed the epitome of neoliberal politics in Hillary Clinton. By doing so, he is attempting to turn his political revolution into its opposite. He is now using his considerable authority with tens of millions of people to funnel them back into the corporate Democratic Party and attempting to surrender our movement to the same establishment that we have been fighting against. Millions of Sanders supporters, nearly half in some polls, say they will not vote for Clinton. Bernie has correctly and repeatedly said, not me, us. But by endorsing Clinton, he has forgotten that message. Our movement had no say in this. Sanders refused to even meet with Jill Stein. He refused to even organize a real debate within the movement. We recognize the historic success of his campaign so far, and he himself has played no small role in that. But we cannot confuse the individual with the movement. It is time for our movement to move on. Our movement cannot follow Bernie into the lair of Wall Street and the billionaire class. As recent polls confirm, the Democratic Party has consciously chosen to not back the strongest campaign against Donald Trump. The latest polling shows Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump tied, deadlocked in the polls. This is an early reading. Admittedly, things could change, but it is revealing, nonetheless, of just how fiercely the Democratic Party opposes our grassroots movement, that they will choose this weak, corrupt candidate, Hillary Clinton, as an opponent against Donald Trump. While Sanders has again and again shown that he could trounce Trump in November. But this is not accidental. The Democratic Party and its billionaire backers are quite simply more afraid of our political revolution than they are of Trump. They don't want our power to grow, and they are prepared to risk a right-wing racist president. But if that happens, let us be clear, this is on them. Sanders also says he supports Clinton because he wants to defeat Trump. While there can be no doubt about Bernie's diagnosis of the threat represented by Trump's right-wing populism, he is entirely wrong about how to cure the disease. We will not succeed in decisively defeating the right by supporting establishment politicians like Hillary Clinton. It is the massive outrage at the brutal big business policies carried out by the political establishment that has created the basis for Trump's ascendancy in the first place. We saw this very clearly. Trump is not the first phenomenon. We saw this clearly a few years ago when we witnessed the rise of the Tea Party, which was born out of the fury at the Wall Street bailouts, while the left was busy making excuses for Obama's pro-corporate policies. Socialist Alternative and I are endorsing Green Party candidate Jill Stein for president. Jill is fighting on essentially all the same issues that brought millions around Bernie. She is calling for Medicare for all, a $15 minimum wage nationally, and an end to mass incarceration, as you heard her say. There can be no doubt in our minds at this moment that Jill's campaign is the clear continuation of our political revolution and deserves the broadest possible support from all of us. Not surprisingly, Clinton supporters and the neoliberal establishment have begun a campaign of fear against our call for a left-wing political alternative by preemptively blaming us for the threat of a Trump presidency. Just like they tried to blame the 3 million people who voted for Ralph Nader in 2000 for George Bush's presidency and the invasion of Iraq. But, sisters and brothers, we know the truth. It was the brutal neoliberal politics of Bill Clinton and the New Democrats that cost Al Gore the presidency. It was the complicity of the whole Democratic Party, including Hillary Clinton, that paved the way for the bloody invasion and occupation of Iraq. First, they rigged the electoral system against any anti-establishment working-class challenge to the capitalist parties. Then, they blame working people for voting wrong when the Republicans win in this warped electoral system. First, the Democratic Party embraces an agenda of deregulating Wall Street, of endless war, of free trade disasters, of budget cuts and union busting, of mass incarceration and structural racism. Then they blame working people they have ruthlessly betrayed for refusing to vote again for their false promises. It is not we who are responsible for the rise of right-wing populism, for the racist and anti-immigrant appeal of Donald Trump. It is the neoliberal pro-corporate policies and obvious corruption of both the Republican and Democratic parties. We have repeatedly warned, collapsing our movement behind Clinton's Wall Street campaign would not only sabotage the political revolution, it would not only mean derailing the incredible momentum we have built over the past year, but it would also help right-wing populists like Trump to gain strength. As we have already seen, if the left continues to fail to offer a fighting alternative, the mass anger fueling the global anti-establishment revolt can be channeled behind right-wing nationalist forces. Even, and this is what we should truly watch out for, even if Trump loses the election, the right-wing forces behind him will emerge strengthened, emboldened, and better organized if we do not build our movement now. We cannot let that happen. We cannot allow ourselves to be bullied into the same bankrupt, lesser evil political logic that has brought us to this moment of crisis. For the left to win the things we have all been fighting for, we will need to build a powerful mass movement based on political independence from the two parties of neoliberalism. And this year, we need to use Jill Stein's campaign and this historic moment to prepare the ground for a new mass party to unite the 99% against the 1%. Imagine the emergence of a broad movement-based political party in this country, bringing together socialists, Greens, left trade unions, Black Lives Matter activists, immigrants, women's rights activists, the LGBTQ movement, environmentalists, and the millions of working people searching for a left alternative. Such a party would not just be an electoral project, but would become an organizing center. It would work with our movements, not against them. A mass party of working people, completely independent of corporate money and influence, would help raise class consciousness. It would help reinforce the idea that working people have common interests across the divides of race, national origin, and gender identity. It would also crucially help make clear that as working people, we have no interest in common with the billionaire class who have used our economy, politics, and even culture to meet their narrow agenda of greed and profit. A broad mass party of the 99% would create a crucial space for the left to debate the strategy and program needed to end poverty, war, racism, and environmental catastrophe. To debate whether this can even be accomplished within the framework of capitalism or whether a socialist transformation of society is needed. And within this broad party for workers, Socialist Alternative would campaign for the idea of taking the top 500 corporations under public ownership and democratic workers' control. We would campaign to replace the destructive, profit-driven capitalist economy with a democratically planned socialist economy based on the needs of humanity and the planet. One of the most important achievements of the Sanders campaign was to reopen a mass debate on socialist ideas and on how we can change society. But we have fundamental differences with Bernie on the meaning of socialism. We do not think that capitalism can be reformed. Capitalism is a system based on massive inequalities and environmental destruction. We need a society based on equality, sustainability, and solidarity. As Bernie himself said, winning a political revolution will take a movement of millions and must be about more than any single candidate or any single election. In that spirit, we say it is time to move beyond Bernie. It is time for the movement that began his presidential campaign to learn to be independent and choose for itself a path forward. This will not happen overnight, but we also must have a sense of urgency. Movements are endangered that do not learn to walk on their own. They can be misled, they can be sold out, they can miss historic opportunities like the one we have today. Last December, Socialist Alternative and I launched Movement for Bernie to independently campaign for Sanders. While always being upfront about our differences, we recognized the huge potential of the movement behind Bernie to challenge the billionaire class. But now it is time for a new name for our new movement. We will be relaunching Movement for Bernie as Movement for the 99%. Bernie is turning toward the Democratic Party, and we, the 99%, are turning toward political independence. Mobilizing from the 120,000 people who signed our petition calling for building a political alternative to the Democrats, we have organized dozens of meetings around the country, just like this one, to announce the launch of the Movement for the 99% and to discuss our next steps. And in just a few weeks, there will be mass protests outside the Democratic National Convention in Philadelphia. Socialist Alternative will be there with Movement for the 99% activists, with Jill Stein, with Bernie or Bust, and many others to demand an end to the corporate stranglehold over our democracy. We will be there calling for a vote for Stein, for launching a united mass party for the 99%, and to build support for a socialist alternative to this rotten system. I hope that today we will have provoked an important discussion. And if you agree with our ideas, I hope that you will join my organization, Socialist Alternative. And I look forward to seeing you all Seattleites in Philly in a few days. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shama. Before we open it up for a discussion, because I'm sure many of you have things to say, we've sparked a discussion with some of the comments, I want to bring forward Emily MacArthur, a socialist alternative activist here in Seattle, to come up here and tell you about how you can help support building the movement for a 99%.
Bernie's campaign showed that it was possible to build a powerful political movement and financially compete with big business parties without taking a dime in corporate cash. But that will take everyone who supports this movement to chip in what they can. We proved the same thing with Shama's re-election in the Battle of Seattle last year. Despite big business going all in to defeat Shama, spending more against us than any previous city council race, we were able to go toe-to-toe with them. In the end, we raised $500,000 in grassroots donations, even more than our opponent, and shattering all previous records in Seattle. we have an even bigger project before us, laying the foundation for a new party for the 99%. That's what Movement for Bernie, soon to be renamed Movement for the 99%, will continue to do moving forward. Already, we have reached hundreds of thousands with our message. As Shama said, 120,000 people signed our petition. That's more than Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard, who got her petition to end the use of superdelegates in the Democratic Party. This shows that there's more momentum for independent politics than reforming a corrupt party. Out of this petition, we've organized dozens of meetings just like this one, and we've already raised over $20,000. We're mobilizing huge protests at the DNC and looking to organize a major walkout of Bernie or bust delegates who are ready to leave the Democratic Party, support Jill Stein, and support building a new party for the 99%. At the DNC, with the whole world watching, we want to break through into the corporate media and let the world know that there are millions who don't support either major political party and who want to see a powerful left political alternative. We know that some people can donate more than others. $25 from an unemployed person or a college student can sometimes be a similar sacrifice as $500 from a well-paid union member. Also, anyone who can give a donation tonight of $25 or more to Movement or Bernie will get a subscription to Socialist Alternatives paper mailed to your house each month. In order to be in compliance, we need everybody who donates to fill out the donation form that should be on your seat. We can take credit cards, cash, or checks made out to Movement for the Political Revolution. If you want a subscription to SA for $25 donation, mark that on your form. So, can anyone help activists get to Philly by donating $300 or more tonight? I'll wait. How about 200 tonight to help continue the political revolution, to make sure that we build a powerful political voice against mass incarceration and racist police violence in this country? $200 for that incredibly important moment in this historic opportunity. All right. Anybody else inspired by that amazing gift? Thought I saw one on the side. Woo! This beautiful bright red banner, which is effective in telling people what we stand for and helping gather people under a cohesive message, costs a pretty penny, about $300. Can I get 3 people tonight to donate $100 to help buy a vibrant new banner to take to Philly? This movement is a global movement. In Spain, in the UK, in Ireland, and in Greece, people have rejected the long-held reign of establishment parties. Help build an American party that is funded by and fights for the millions, not the millionaires. How about 50 to help us print hundreds of placards for protesters to hold outside the DNC and future demonstrations demanding a party based on movements? All right. Can anyone give just $25, which will get you a subscription to Socialist Alternative, mailed to your house each month, providing not just news from a left perspective, but socialist strategy to win from folks who brought you the first major victory of $15 an hour in the whole country, who led the successful election campaign for Shama Sawan in Seattle. 25? All right. Who can give $15 tonight to help activists in Minneapolis right now who are fighting for a $15 an hour minimum wage? And we have some awesome volunteers in the crowd who will continue to pass buckets if you want to just dump your pocket change in there. As Bernie said, even a dollar donation accumulates, and that helps us build our independence. And I thank you very much for your generosity tonight.
Thank you so much, Emily, and thank you everybody for donating generously. I know so many of you have donated to Shama Sawant's re-election campaign, her election campaign before that, the election campaign before that, the Fight for 15. It's going to take a lot of sacrificing to build this party, and we really appreciate it. We're going to take a break at this moment, and what we're going to do during this break is ask all those who want to come forward to speak in the discussion to come forward and let us know. But we have only about an hour. It does not mean that is where the discussion has to be. We can, continue the discussion beyond that. But for tonight, we only have about an hour for discussion. And that means so we can accommodate a lot of people, we're asking people to keep their comments to 1 to 2 minutes. So right now, we're going to take a 10-minute break. Please come forward to the stage. Let me know your name and what you want to speak about.